So, welcome everybody to our annual general meeting for 2022. My name is Danielle and I'm the chair of the Trust. So, things that I'd like to cover in my introductory talk today are the continued impact of COVID-19, which for this year has continued to be a challenge. Staff have been working incredibly hard. Despite the lowering of restrictions, we've continued to have COVID waves, and that's put increased pressure on colleagues. But people have continued to deliver the services and put the patients first. So, as we did last year, I'm sure you'd all agree that it's really important that we say thank you in a heartfelt way to all of our colleagues who've worked so hard to maintain safe services for our patients and service users. We also want to pay tribute to the 5 colleagues that we lost to COVID, sadly, and to also share our thoughts with their family and friends who are struggling to come to terms with their loss. The other challenges that we've faced as an organisation are the culture, the long-standing entrenched cultural issues that exist within the Trust. We've been working very hard with you all to address some of those challenges, but as you'll know, because the challenges have been so long-standing, there are parts of the organisation, individual teams and colleagues, who have not yet experienced the improvements that we hope to achieve, and so that work continues. We had a number of significant personnel changes in the Trust. I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Fariba Aria, who joined us as Medical Director, and she replaced Dr. Hilary Grant, who'd been here for many years. Fariba joined us from Leicestershire, where she has significant experience, and I'm sure we're all going to benefit from her expertise here at Team BSMHFT. We've also been joined by Vanessa Wright as Deputy Director of Nursing and Quality, and she replaced Natalie Willits. We're pleased to welcome her to the team. In terms of service developments, the Trust has taken on significantly greater responsibility in the Reach Out Provider Collaborative. We are the lead provider. We're taking on commissioning arrangements. As you heard last year, this is an increasing responsibility, which means that as a Trust, we are looking outwards and working with partners beyond Birmingham and Solihull. This partnership working continues to be a top priority for the Trust. This is even more important than it has been in the pandemic. This has been demonstrated in our continued commitment to system working, where we're working across the integrated care system, which brings together the hospitals, primary care services, so that's GPs, community trusts, as well as mental health, voluntary sector, local authorities and social care, all working together to provide joined-up services that are more responsive to the needs of local communities. And also, importantly, to tackle the long-standing inequalities in health that have been really highlighted by the recent events of the pandemic. We will be touching more on the work of partnership later on in the agenda. But to just give you a flavour, the next slide shows you the important principles of system working for the integrated care system in Birmingham and Solihull. So the first thing is really actively listening to the population so that we can shape our services responsively and so that they better meet the needs of the communities that we're here to serve. By genuinely listening to partners and stakeholders so that we can work through to collectively understand the challenges that we face in delivering responsive and effective services and to shape those together. So I would now like to highlight some of the fantastic achievements that colleagues have achieved over the last year. The commitment of our amazing staff has actually drawn attention, and we have won awards for many colleagues for the hard work that they've done, for the innovation, and I'd like to just mention a few of them. I'm not going to be able to cover everybody because so many people have achieved success. So Roísìn, our Chief Exec, was named in the Health Service Journal Top 50 Chief Executives. Patrick, our Director of Strategy, People and Partnerships, has been awarded an MBE in the Queen's New Year's Honours. And Marimutu Kumarasamy, our Associate Director for Services, Secure Care and Offender Health, was chosen for Nurse of the Year Awards by the British Association of Physicians of Indian origin. Kumar has demonstrated outstanding commitment to service improvement and also to the organisation's focus on being an anti-racist, anti-discriminatory organisation. There's something else that I would like to highlight about Kumar. He's been very innovative in his work with the team. And in the Commonwealth Games recently, he was very aware that service users in our forensic services had reduced access to sport and physical activity compared to other people who could engage with the Commonwealth Games. So he and the team took the decision to bring the Commonwealth Games to the patients. And so there were sporting activities that took place in Rayside, also in Tamarind Centre, which was absolutely fantastic. I know everybody that took part really talked about what a successful event it was. And also took the unusual step of encouraging consultant psychiatrists to take patients out to attend services and events as part of the Commonwealth Games, which I thought was highly innovative. So when I had the opportunity to talk at one of the Commonwealth Games fringe events about the potential for sport and physical activity to contribute to mental health and well-being, I used the case study of Kumar and the team, and I was awarded a special commemorative Commonwealth button to highlight my contribution. But of course, the contribution that I gave was highlighting the work of Kumar and the team. So I'd like now to take the opportunity to invite Kumar to accept that Commonwealth button on behalf of himself and the team. I'd also like to acknowledge and celebrate the outstanding achievement of Elizabeth Eze, Ladywood and Handsworth Community Mental Health Team, and she won the Student Nursing Times Award for the mental health category. The next slide highlights some of the other achievements. Unfortunately, I cannot list them all, but some of them include the Silver Award from Stonewall for our commitment to LGBTQ+ and inclusion. Junior trainees at our Liaison Psychiatry Service won the Trainee Researcher of the Year and the Junior Trainee of the Year Poster Prize. And the Tamarind team won the National Service User Choice Award for breaking the barriers. So I'd like to say congratulations also to Dr. James Reid for being re-elected Chair of the National Chief Clinical Information Officer Panel, and our ICT team who lead the way nationally, and you'll hear more about that from Carl shortly. There are many more that obviously I haven't got the time to cover, but I'm sure you'll see that the work that many of colleagues across the Trust has been amazing, and we're really appreciative of that work. I'd also, before I hand over to Roísìn, just like to say thank you to our governors who continue to support and challenge and provide counsel which really helps us with the continuing improvements of the work of the Trust. So, thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you to Teresa and to James as well for being our British Sign Language interpreters today, without whom we couldn't have our virtual event as it is today. Good afternoon, everybody. It's unfortunate that we can't do this in person because my first experience in my first year of being in the Trust, of holding the annual general meeting indeed in this room, it being full to the brim with so many of you, an opportunity to really celebrate all the things that are great about our organisation. So I hope that you'll get a flavour of that. We've invited, as you know, a number of people to showcase some of the fantastic work that's going on in Team BSMHFT. So I hope we give you some kind of a flavour, and let's hope that next year we can, in fact, celebrate again in our hundreds in person. I can't stand in front of you today and talk about the Trust without first talking about our values. The importance of our values to everything that we do. They are at the core of all that we should do. And they are there to help us be the best that we can be, but also to make sure that any of the behaviours that don't align to them, that we've got a means by highlighting that and by supporting people to understand what is expected of them. They apply to each and every one of us, not just to some of us. And the one thing that every single person in Team BSMHFT can do is consider their own behaviours and ensure that they're in line with our values. That's how important they are to us. We know that the more that we show our values and we show up by behaving in that way, that people will experience us in that way, and that we will get the support of everybody around us and those that we're trying to support every day and need us to be here for them, to understand that they too can apply those values and expect them from us at all times. I wanted to talk a little bit about our strategy. I know last year we talked about the fact that we had done a refresh and that we were about to launch the strategy. That doesn't stop us today reminding ourselves of why that too is important. Again, this is everyone's strategy. We developed it off the back of hearing what people had to say, quite wide consultation, and it reflects what people told us they thought we should focus on and what should be important, what was important to them and therefore should be important to us. We know that it's important in terms of thinking about how we drive change, about how we work together, that this isn't about us being in a situation where we do unto. This is about us doing things in collaboration and working together. It's about ensuring that we've got continuous improvement, and it's about ensuring that we do tackle a reduction in health inequalities. I know that across the media at the moment there's a kind of sense that of questioning why this might be important. But in this organisation, we are not in the business of questioning why that's important. We have the facts. We have the information that tells us why tackling health inequalities is important. We are dealing with people every single day who are suffering, whose health is in a situation that it may not have been in had they been able to access services earlier, or had they been able to have different experiences of health services. So that's why it's important to us and why it will remain one of our priorities. I wanted to talk, this is a busy few slides, and they'll be available for you to look at in more detail, and in fact they come from one of our board reports. But I did want to highlight some of the things that we've managed to achieve around our 4 priorities during this year. You'll appreciate that in terms of our clinical services, our real focus has remained around COVID, adapting what we do, sometimes putting some of the things we wanted to do around the strategy slightly on the back burner in order to keep things safe and to make sure that we were doing the best we could in the most challenging of times. However, people have also made huge efforts around our strategy to create improvements. Improvements in our, for example, in our urgent care pathway, and whilst we're still seeing increases in demand and we're still not in a position to be able to say that we're always able to do what we want to do in crisis, we have the new urgent care centre, which we're very proud of, and we did that in partnership with Birmingham Women's and Children's so that we could begin to furthermore think about an all-age kind of approach to these things. We've enhanced our home care liaison team for people who are older and need to receive our services. And our early intervention service in Solihull has been commended on many occasions around the new developments that they are developing around meeting the standards that are set nationally. Renu is with us today, and I'm smiling because she's sitting in front of me, and she'll be talking about one of the most significant pieces of work that's been going on in the organisation to transform our clinical services and particularly our community services, and we're looking forward to hearing about that from you, Renu, and the impact that that's had. From a point of view of progress on quality, we all know we have a long way to go around our quality and safety agenda. Our CQC report has laid bare for us and reinforced the areas that we need to concentrate on. During this year, we've spent some time looking at what a comprehensive equality improvement programme can look like and beginning to deliver that. Our Reducing Restrictive Practice collaborative has also seen really significant impact of improvement around reducing restraints and reducing, therefore, the experience for patients in certain areas. And our expectation and desire is that that work will continue and will be available more prolifically across the organisation. We have safety huddles now that happen in all areas of the trust in our inpatient settings that mean on a daily basis people are reconsidering what safe looks like and what we need to do in order to create the most safe environment. There are a number of other achievements that we're putting down in this particular slide, and some of them we'll hear a little bit more about later as well. So, for example, the use of dialogue, a technical device for us to support care planning, and I'm sure Carl might cover that when he talks later about some of the achievements that we've made during the year. From a sustainability point of view, From a sustainability point of view, so it's lovely to have colleagues in the room, isn't it, to support you? Thank you. From a sustainability point of view, clearly we've still needed to pay attention to things like our financial arrangements. And whilst it's been we've had a strange financial arrangement, I think that's the way I would describe it during COVID, whereby we have been supported financially by the national team. We know we're coming out of that period, but we also know that it still took a lot of effort to stay within balance during that time. We've changed a lot around our governance processes, and particularly around the kind of information that we receive, and making sure that we now think about what the demographics and protected characteristics, and looking through that lens fairly consistently as far as our data is concerned, and having that readily available at all levels and within the organisation. Danielle touched on the partnership working. It's a real feature for us. We know that we achieve very little of any great substance on our own. And we know that the people that we are here for need us to work increasingly more with more people. So we've concentrated a lot in this last year around some of the more traditional partnerships. We've done some work around changing the kind of partnerships that we have with some of our community organisations, trying to move away from being seen as the kind of parental oversight of those, and really trying to think about what does true partnership mean in those areas, and that's something that we want to continue to build on. Of course, we have room for improvement. We know that equality, diversity and inclusion needs to remain a priority for us, that we are not achieving good experiences for everybody in that space, nor are we tackling the health inequalities that we know exist. That our focus on quality and safety must continue. We know from the most recent focused inspection on Meadowcroft that we've still got a way to go, and that we need to be supporting everybody to be aspiring and ensuring that our quality and safety is as good as it can be. We also know that whilst we've been looking to try and improve the working environment and the experiences, as Danielle said, that isn't being experienced by everybody. So creating a great place to work in this organisation remains something that we know we've got a great deal of work to do. And you'll see alongside that some of the things that we're doing to try and tackle those things. So our anti-racism, our anti-discriminatory campaign will ramp up. We've launched it during this year, and it will ramp up again during next year. Doing more things like our Enough is Enough campaign, which is around really helping us ensure that everybody is able to raise their concerns and their experiences and know that and have an expectation that we will do something about it, even if you don't want to use one of our processes. And we know that using up some of our processes sometimes is quite daunting and difficult. That said, I want to end on the fact that I do want to reiterate we have got so much to celebrate. We have achieved a huge amount. None of that has been alone, like I said. We've got partners that we've worked with, both from a statutory organisation point of view, but also from a third and voluntary sector point of view. You are all brilliant. Thank you so much for being so, and I look forward to our continuing to be so during next year. Thank you. I apologise for the fact that you have me again. I'm not Sarah Bloomfield. Sarah is unfortunately unwell, such that she can't be with us, and we wish her our very best for a speedy recovery and to be back with us soon. So I'm taking up the mantle around highlighting our quality and safety improvements during the year and where we've been coming from. We recognised that one of the things that we needed to do early on was actually to create some growth within the nursing and directorate, particularly to concentrate on many of those priorities that we talked about around our quality and safety, and to support that agenda. We're looking to introduce the safer staffing. We have introduced a safer staffing committee. We know that the one thing that worries every single one of us every day, we know that when there are meetings twice a day about what's the staffing going to look like in the next few hours, that we've got a workforce crisis. And we know that we need to pay attention to that. We recognise that much of what we can do is in the more medium to long term, and that's what the Safer Staffing Committee has been set up to do. We've started an international recruitment campaign. We thought long and hard about that. We know there are ethical dilemmas around that, and we're very conscious of those, and we're taking those into account in the approach that we are taking. We equally know, though, that we have many international individuals already in the team who've had good experiences, and we haven't recruited in a very direct way, who are supportive of us taking this approach. We do expect to be in a position to introduce the new Patient Safety Incident Response Framework, a bit of a mouthful, I'm afraid, commencing in September. And we continue to work really closely with our regulators to ensure that we've got good compliance, but also that we're improving and that we're seeing the world through their eyes as well as our own eyes, particularly because we know people will often use the regulators as a body to go to share their experiences of us as an organisation. And as I mentioned earlier, our engagement with the integrated care system as we go forward becomes increasingly important, and we've been doing a great deal of that during this year. It goes without saying, in a pandemic, what happens around our infection control and prevention is really imperative to us. And this slide tells us a little bit about the number of outbreaks that we've been experiencing during this year. Of course, we know that COVID wasn't over after a year or two, and that actually we've had some particular prolific variants that have meant that we've had greater incidence during this year, and that we continue to review and adapt our guidance in line with national expectations and our own experience. And indeed, we'll be making some announcements later this week about some further changes that we'll be making next week. Audit compliance remains a priority to ensure that we've got high standards, and our NHS England colleagues have been really supportive. They've been in twice to do some peer reviews with us and to do some documentation review, and they've supported us to develop a plan for how we can continue to improve around that. I've mentioned the Care Quality Commission. They are a very important regulator of ours, and as I said, we continue to provide them on a monthly basis. We meet with them And to date, they have been very pleased with the progress that we've made under our Section 31 notice, particularly around ligature risk improvements and our care planning approach. There was a further unannounced inspection, as I've already indicated, on the Meadowcroft in June, and that report was made public during this week. And whilst it has a number of areas where it talks about some good practice and it talks about some of the positive things, it also talks about the fact that, and we can't deny the fact that actually from a safety point of view, they found that unit inadequate from a safety point of view. We're experiencing pressures like everybody around our workforce, and that was largely aligned to the workforce pressures in that particular area. We know that that team worked tirelessly to do their best. We know that that team were experiencing particular pressures and that they have really engaged with the CQC and with us around looking at the improvement plan. They've also, CQC are, as we know, developing a new inspection regime, so we look forward to working with them to determining what that might mean for us as we go forward. Quality improvement, so that continuous improvement point in our priorities can't be done in this organisation without us thinking about quality improvement, QI, being available to all of us. There are currently 20 active quality improvement projects, and thank you to every single one of you who are leading on those, and all of you who've undertaken the training and are thinking about what your project's going to be inspired by some of these. So we've got projects that include things like improving discharge planning, having sensory-friendly wards in particular areas, improving the accessibility of fundamental training, because we know that's so important to all of us. Some of the patients that we work with have choking risks, and it's really important that we think about being as contemporary as we can be around the support around those. And I've already mentioned our Reducing Restrictive Patches Collaborative, which we had our celebration day of in July, and I know they, at that point, shared lots of the impact that this has had. We've also had a year of real sadness. Who couldn't have been horrified by the murders of Arthur Lavinia Hughes and Star Hobson, and we were actively involved in one of those reviews, and we welcomed some of the responses that and the recommendations, because it has meant that we, within the organisation, but more importantly within our system in Birmingham and Solihull, have been able to respond and to think differently about how we think about child safeguarding. From a safeguarding adults point of view, we contributed to 4 safeguarding adult reviews across Birmingham and Solihull and have taken on board the learning. And likewise to the 5 domestic homicide rate reviews that we were involved in. They always are a time of great sadness, and they have to be a time of correction, and they have to be a time of thinking about the improvements side of things, and that's exactly the approach we are taking. We know that part of that is about shaping our safeguarding culture. We know that we are still found wanting sometimes with our Think Family approach. We know that it's fabulous in some areas and not so fabulous in others. And so our aim is to embed that further and make safeguarding everyone's business. It doesn't matter what your role in the organisation is. You don't have to be working in a clinical service to be aware and need to be aware of the fact that of how to enact a safeguarding review, how to make contact with our safeguarding team. So we're developing a safeguarding supervision model that will create consistency across the trust and also consistency of attendance at safeguarding meetings for child and adult services through the system, so that we've got, again, consistency from a point of view of our input and our ability to bring things back. And the use of escalation and professional difference guidance, which all professional groups are now working through and adopting. And also how we recognise and manage our allegations from a just culture point of view. Just a few more slides now on quality. Patient safety. During the financial year that we're here to talk about, we had over 26,000 incidents that we reported. 86 of these were deemed to be serious incidents and therefore were reviewed through our serious incident framework. The most common of those in these areas were around assault, violence and harassment, the quality of care and the compliance and the levels of staffing and the workforce. And the highest number that we had were incidents that related to individuals who had died where we suspected that that might have been due to suicide. So huge numbers of incidents being managed through our framework, and trying once again to make sure that every single one of those root cause analysis pieces, that there is learning for us in the organisation. And I know many of you will see the learning bulletins that are sent out in terms of us being able to share that more widely across the organisation. Our Recovery for All strategy has been continued to be about co-production with both families, with carers, and with our experts by experience. And that we've developed the Recovery for Quality mark, and 3 awards have been received and made in this financial year that we're talking about. 20 of our experts by experience were trained as quality advisors, and that means that point about quality improvement can come from anyone. It can be owned by anyone, it can be instigated by anyone, and that is to support us on that journey. We established the Lived Experience Action Research Group, which has been really active, and our Recovery for All Facebook page has been well used. We have a regular newsletter, and we've had Recovery for All podcasts, which have gone down really well, where people have shared their experiences in a really positive way that have inspired and helped others along the way too. And our Recovery for College for All went online, and that therefore has meant we've managed to reach many more people from a training and experience point of view. We've changed our Experts by Experience programme as well, from a point of view of having a new induction and some revised training packages and a new handbook. Our Experts by Experience through the Recovery College are providing input to the new wellbeing policy, and they are providing valuable information to us through surveys, which we've now got embedded into the structures of the organisation in terms of us taking on board what's being said. There's been something called Behind the Badge initiative, which is aimed at tackling stigma, particularly for staff working in the organisation who have lived experiences. And our Experts by Experience Connections project, which they undertook with trainee nurse associates, which the feedback from was absolutely brilliant, and really supported those individuals to think differently about the careers that they were embarking on. So what are our next steps around quality more generally? So we'll continue to have a focus on our quality priorities, and they will always be agreed through stakeholder consultation, and by that we mean by the widest stakeholders as possible. We're looking to implement, as I said, the new patient safety incident response framework and build a culture of learning around that, and that framework is designed to do that. We want to embed the principles of quality improvement to enhance service and patient outcomes. We want our quality improvement programme to become more prolific and to become led by many more people in the organisation. And we want those 20 projects that are ongoing now to be shared across the organisation. We clearly want to build a competent, compassionate and inclusive, as well as committed workforce. We know there are challenges with that. Our Safer Staffing Committee, as well as our Wellbeing Committee, are doing quite a lot of work with us around trying to determine how we can do that. Because this isn't just about recruiting, this is about retaining, and it's about looking after those of us that work here today, recognising the contribution we've made, how tired we might be, and our own ideas we've all got for how we can improve on that. We want to increase our measures to protect the workforce from assault and harassment. Looking back to those serious incidents, there were a large number of them around this. And so we know we've got a responsibility and a duty to do more around that. We want to enhance our clinical governance arrangements across all directorates. We know there is some differential at the moment around how much attention is paid to that, and we want that to be consistent. And we want to develop a system for arrangements, develop system arrangements for ensuring high quality and safe services for all of our population. So as we become a lead provider within the Birmingham and Solihull system around mental health, we want that to include our statutory organisations, but we want to include much more our third sector and voluntary organisations in making sure that quality is at the centre and improving quality is at the centre of what we do. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Can't get this working. Oh, there we go. Right, okay. So, Dave Tomlinson, Director of Finance, often referred to as the money man, but I always point out to people, I don't spend any of the money. I was just testing, see if I got much support. Thank you, Phil. So I'll repeat all that, but I'm often referred to as the money man, and I rapidly point out to people, I spend very little of the money myself. So when it's a bad performance, it's everybody else. When it goes well, it's down to me completely. So what I'm going to talk about today is our finances for last year, why financial performance is important, what good looks like, how we did, and what that means for us. So, why is financial performance important? And it's this thing about the balance. We have to do both quality and the money. We can't do one or the other. That's when you get difficulties. You've got to have the golden balance between those two. And finances can never be an end in itself. It's about surplus for a purpose. You're generating a surplus so you can spend it on services. In addition to that, good performance does reassure regulators, the people that hold us accountable. It gives us room to invest, and it keeps us in the driving seat. And it allows us to concentrate on quality. It means that we can do the things that we want to. It's the minimum that we've got to do to remain in control, and that's really important. Another thing that is emerging, there's been quite a bit said already today about the system, and the system's performance as a whole is even more important than the individual organisations. And there's little point being an island to success in the sea of failure. So it's really important you work as a good partner in the system, collectively for the greater good. We've done that really well over the last couple of years, well respected by the other organisations, and we benefit, patients benefit from doing that, from doing the right thing. So going on. So, what does good look like and how did we do? There's 3 or 4 real measures around this. It's about a sustainable annual surplus, or spending less than you actually bring in. And over the last year, we generated a surplus of £1.3 million on overall turnover or funding of £366 million. And that's no mean feat. We'd always want to spend as much as we can on the services, without going into deficit. But we do need to have a bit of leeway within there, so we'd never expect to be bang on break even. Another factor, having cash in the bank. And at the end of last year, we had 55 million. Now, we'd want to spend that on capital, but we're constrained from doing that by central controls and constraints. A lot of NHS trusts like this one have got lots of money in the bank, but they need to spend it on capital. But they're not always able to. And going through what we did spend on in the last year, investments in developments and improvements, almost 12 million. But there are a number of large-scale developments we want to do, certainly around Highcroft and Rayside re-provision. And we do need to get authority to do that over a period of time. And it's a real perverse thing where you're pilloried for having cash in the bank, but then you're not allowed to spend it. But we have got good reserves. Also, we are considered low risk financially, and there's no serious concerns from regulators around that. Roísin's already talked about CQC and the rating, etc., that we've got within there, but we are still considered low risk overall terms. How do we spend our money? The vast majority of the money that we pay out goes on staff. So getting on for 2/3 of all our spending is on staff, the large blue part of this. The green is around estates and facilities, the estate, the properties that we work from. Those are the 2 largest parts, but certainly around the staffing, that is significantly where our money goes. And just to go on to, I make no apologies for this, I've done the same thing for the last 2 or 3 years, where it goes into what does this actually mean in real terms. Because one of the secrets for financial professionals is to try and make complicated or boring things easy to understand and meaningful. So this is an example we use, and we've talked about before. what some of the terms mean. So you've got here a guy, Tom. Tom's a nurse who works in a local hospital. And you've got there his monthly pay and his outgoings. So Tom gets about £2,000 a month, and he manages to put away about £100 each month. And he plans to do that, so that on an ongoing basis, he's got some money in the bank. That's what he plans to do. How does he manage his money? Well, the £100 spare he's got each month, in the NHS, you'd call that a surplus. It's what you spend less than your incomings around that. He's got £1,000 in the bank that he's saved up over a period of time. That's to cover against unforeseen expenses, and you'd call that in the NHS reserves. Now, he's just heard he's getting a £50 monthly pay rise. We'd call that an annual uplift. But downside for Tom is he's got a number of real issues. So his rent's going up by £50, his monthly travel costs by £10, and this is probably conservative, utilities bill going up by £200. We call those cost pressures, things that happen to soak up the spare that we've got. And all that means is he'd be worse off by £210 each month. In the NHS, we'd call that the financial gap. So when you're doing through your planning, you work out what do all the changes mean and what have we got to do. So how does Tom stay within his budget? To stay where he is, he needs to find a way to reduce his outgoings by £210. We'd call that the savings target. And he can do that in a variety of different ways. So where they talk about CIP and efficiency or cost improvement programme and efficiency, that's just doing the same thing or the same outcomes, but to do it at a lower cost. So what he could do in there, he could walk to work on some days or find a cheaper provider of internet or whatever. There's also, he can work some bank shifts. He can go out and income generate, gain additional income. But as people know, that's difficult to maintain for a long time, and it's always seen as being it's temporary, although a lot of people do rely on this. So it's temporary or non-recurrent, we call that in the NHS. He could also form a club with his colleagues to share travel costs or his home. We call that in the NHS collaboration. It's around doing things collectively to try and drive down the costs. It's important, certainly in this world where we go into working across the system, what we can do collectively is far more important than what you can do in isolation. Now, if he manages any of that and does cover his costs and his increase, the bank manager's happy, and that in our sense would be the regulators, NHSE or NHS Improvement. If he can't do that, the bank manager might foreclose on the loan he's got, and we'd call that intervention. But the real point of this is it's for Tom to resolve that, and it's for the trust to resolve that. A lot of things that we get and the pressures that come through, they're outside of our control, but we have to be able to manage it. And we have to do it sensibly. We have to find a way to both increase quality or deliver the same outputs with less money. We're never going to have enough money. The NHS will never have enough money. So I think that's me. So if people do really want to read the annual reports and accounts, and I don't know why you would, but if you do want to read that, you can get them via this. The full detail is in there. So I think that's me. Thank you.
So afternoon all, I'm here today to speak about some of the exciting work that we've undertaken in terms of the Community Mental Health and Transformation Programme. I hope to take you through the aims of the programme, some of the progress that we've made to date over the last 12 months, and some of the up-and-coming activity. So very quickly, how did the programme come about? So in 2019, the NHS published the long-term plan. And within that, they set out ambitious expectations to look at the expansion and transformation of adult community mental health services across England. This set us a real challenge. So, in order to manage those expectations, systems like ours, BSOL, Birmingham and Solihull, created programmes of change to manage the delivery. We, as a system, were asked to submit our bid to outline how we would look to achieve that. And the aims were clear: put our service users at the heart of everything that we do, reduce barriers to care, increase services, and ensure flexibility and a multidisciplinary approach to services. So how did we as a system go about submitting our bid? So bringing together partners, provider partners, Birmingham and Solihull Mental Health Foundation Trust, Birmingham Women's and Children's, Forward Thinking Birmingham, and our Birmingham and Solihull ICB, we set to work. So linking with wider collaborative partners, and we have a raft of them luckily enough within BSOL, we linked in with our voluntary community sector partners, our service users and experts by experience, which are crucial partners within this programme, employment support, local authorities, education and primary care networks, again another key partner in this work. We looked at some of the historic issues that we were facing as a system when we were looking at mental health provisions. So looking at a huge increase in need for services, lack of capacity, reduction in capacity, and seeing huge waits and that impact on our service users. We also considered some of the social and economic barriers that were reducing flexibility in terms of service provision for our service users. And we also looked at some of the really key work that we had done as a system that showed us some of that green shoots of change. So in particular, within the South, we had piloted some primary care liaison work looking at aligning mental health providers alongside GPs, which had had a huge amount of success. We were able to provide consultation, liaison and intervention delivery right at the front door. So there had been huge successes in terms of outcomes. The next element of work that we looked at is in terms of the piloting that took place within the east of the area, looking at multidisciplinary teams, focusing on that patient-centric package of care that shaped around our service users, making sure that they're patient-centric. So by bringing all of that work together, we were able to develop our high-level pathway for BSOL. So, in terms of the pathway, it's a linear pathway. We're removing those hard barriers from accessing services. It's ensuring that service users can step into the services that they require when they require it. So it may well be that they're stepping into primary care, and that's where their services and their needs might be met, or stepping straight into secondary care. So it allows us to provide that flow for our service users. So you can see there it's looking at how we flex and develop and nurture those community assets, our GP relationships. It's looking at learning from some of the pilot work, so our primary care mental health teams and our neighbourhood multi-agency teams. It's building on the work that we knew worked, and also how we create that flow into secondary care. Okay, so then looking at how that looks as a wider model of care. So, looking at what I mentioned earlier in terms of those resilient communities and creating those resilient communities. So, linking in with our GPs, our VCSE colleagues, our faith groups to create those links. Keeping our service user in the centre of everything that we do. So looking at our primary care mental health teams, looking at our neighbourhood multi-agency teams, wrapping around our service users to provide multidisciplinary, co-produced, needs-led treatment plans. Looking at support with social circumstances, employment, housing and finances, looking at social prescribing, looking at support with things such as physical health check, SMI physical health checks. And then you can see there on the right-hand side in terms of the size, linking in with secondary care. If our service users need to step up, we need to remove the barriers and create that fluid boundary between secondary care. The other important element of community transformation is linking in with the other innovative pieces of work that are taking place across the system, drawing those strings together and creating one cohesive pathway for our service users. In addition to this core model, which is for 18 plus, including older adults, the other areas that we're focusing on as part of the programme are eating disorders, community rehabilitation and personality disorders. So in terms of the pathway overview, it rests on 4 key steps. The ability to access services swiftly, a holistic multi-agency approach to service user needs, reducing and addressing health inequalities and removing those barriers to secondary care or where the best care is. As I mentioned before, this is a linear pathway. This runs from primary care through to secondary care, bringing together third sector expertise, reducing waits for access to services and making sure our service users are in the right place at the right time. So this was the bid that we submitted for BSOL and what we've been working so hard on over the last 12 months. So how do we go about then establishing this huge programme of change for Birmingham and Solihull? First things first, we set up a robust governance structure, including partner providers, making sure that we had service users, which were the most important part of this. We needed that check and challenge during the development of the programme. We also needed to think about what was doable over the last 12 months, so we turned our focus towards establishing primary care infrastructure. So building roles in, such as primary care hub managers, and understanding what those teams needed to look like. We knew that there was further work that needed to be done within our secondary care teams and our CMHTs, so we know that that is work now that we're focusing on for this year. Also, we looked at making sure that we did this by a staged approach, so locality by locality, of which we have 5 in BSOL. We agreed that we'd try to bring each of our levels and support each of our levels, each of our localities, bringing them up to a certain level before going live, so supporting them through this change. Finally, we agreed our rollout timetable, which you'll see on the slide, and we agreed to go ahead and roll out within our pilot areas first. There was already the infrastructure, there was already the stakeholder engagement, so those are the areas that we went live with first. So as of the 1st of April this year, South went live, followed shortly by East, which went live on the 1st of May. And at the end of this month, South, North and West will all go live in terms of that primary care function. So, in terms of supporting that rollout, and what do I mean by those levels and bringing those areas up to that point where they're ready to go live? It's about making sure that we've got primary care mental health teams in place, receiving referrals, being able to complete assessments and triage. It's about having neighbourhood multi-agency teams in place and established, looking at those more complex care cases, supporting the system. As I mentioned, in terms of the secondary care and our level 3, that's where we're turning our view towards in this financial year, and I'll come on to that shortly. So in terms of the implementation across each of those localities, they are clinically and operationally led alongside our stakeholders from each of those areas. This is very much a place-based model. We know across our 5 localities, not one of them are all the same. They all require something different. So within the implementation, as I mentioned, these implementation groups, we've got stakeholders from the local groups, we've got VCSE colleagues, we've got clinical and operational leads to support the rollout. So you've heard me mention primary care mental health teams. So what do they actually look like? First of all, they're locality based. They're led by primary care team hub managers, and they vary in terms of their skill mix. So you'll have certain roles such as associate nurse prescribers, advanced clinical practitioners, OT, community recovery workers. We're working alongside our VCSE colleagues to build these teams, and they will vary depending on that local need. So in terms of the multi-agency teams, they form a crucial part of the primary care function. They are that link between the primary care mental health teams, our secondary care teams, and those local assets. They provide that professional, local expertise. VCSE colleagues, local authority colleagues, it's a multi-agency approach. They provide support for ongoing management of a particular care plan. If it's a multi-agency care plan, they all come together to deliver that and manage it. They provide a platform for discussion and feedback and problem solving on some of our more complex cases, and also provide a platform when discussing cases that might need to step into secondary care, and likewise from secondary care into primary care. So in terms of the CMHTs, in terms of that work, all of that work has taken place over the last 12 months, and we know now, moving forward, our focus moves now towards the CMHTs. So what work has commenced already? Engagement has commenced across all locality areas. In particular, we've also got an up-and-coming event on the 13th of October, so we'd encourage colleagues, if they've already seen the invite, please do come along. Recruitment of new roles within our CMHTs has also commenced. We've already started looking at caseloads, needing to understand the numbers of cases potentially that are in CMHTs at the moment that could safely step into primary care if the service provision is right for service users. We've started to look at some of our evidence-based interventions. We know caseloads will look different within the CMHT, so we're reviewing our interventions. What type of interventions do we now need within CMHTs? We're planning the move away from CPA, again as part of the programme, and that national move. We're looking at what our alternative will be, and hence some of the work that's already been undertaken with Birmingham and Solihull Mental Health in terms of Dialogue Plus and the care planning. I've mentioned there about Dialogue Plus as one of the moves away from CPA. It's also one of the key outcome measures that we know now that we're working towards, alongside goal-based outcomes and REQUAL. We're implementing the rollout of training packages, in particular the trauma-informed approach across all teams. And we're just starting to look and manage the expectations of stakeholders when we're looking at the changes for access into our systems, such as the SPOA and the RMC for Forward Thinking Birmingham. So a summary of the achievements so far. The Mental Health and Wellbeing Service is now live in South and East, receiving referrals, providing interventions and working with service users. Our South and East multi-agency teams are in place, reviewing complex packages of care, providing a fully multidisciplinary approach. The remaining localities will go live at the end of this month, so this marks a significant and exciting time for the programme. All areas now have their local implementation groups in place to make sure that this is place-based, locally focused in terms of what we're offering. The work has commenced towards the implementation of dialogue, and training plans have been established for our primary care teams, focusing on things such as CYP awareness, perinatal awareness and older adult awareness. And that stratification of caseloads has commenced. We're starting to understand the numbers that can move through our pathway and manage their needs safely. And we've already appointed our evaluators to make sure that we're being held accountable. We're not looking to come to the end of this process and think about the improvements we could make. We're trying to be proactive and make them now. And then finally, we've been able to start pulling some of those early elements of qualitative and quantitative data. And this is what I'm hoping to finish on at this point. So, within the South and East, where services are live, service users were asked, what was good about your experience of using the service? So I'll go through just a couple. The lady who supported me was amazing and really helped my mindset. Kind, caring, helpful, felt like I was talking to a friend who cares. The mental health nurse I saw was really understanding, and I actually felt like she listened to me without judging. Thank you very much, everybody.
Good. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Hang on, let's get the... Oh, one sec. Good. Okay. Good. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Louise John, and I'm the charity manager for the Caring Minds charity. And it's a great opportunity to come and showcase the charity and at this wide audience today and bring ourselves into the forefront. So I'm here to tell you who, what and why. So who are we? We are Caring Minds, and we are the charity for Birmingham and Solihull Mental Health Trust. We were established in 2003. And what do? So we are committed to providing support for the best possible facilities and environment for our service users, staff, carers and visitors in order that well-being, recovery and experience is maximised. And we exist to provide support and opportunities for staff, service users and families that is considered above and beyond NHS provision. It's a wonderful opportunity, as I've said, to be able to talk about Caring Minds to such a wide audience today. And I want to tell you about our values and ambition. So our values and ambition is very much in keeping with the Trust values. And during our fundraising and the activities that we intend to take forward, we intend to show compassion in our approach to fundraising and activities and consideration to all bid applications that come through to us. We aim to be inclusive by listening and to ideas and encouraging and offering guidance when people come forward to support us. And we will be committed to making a difference with the funding and support we provide. Our ambition is simply to support the Trust's vision of improving mental health well-being by providing funding that will enhance the service user and staff experience beyond what the NHS is able to provide. Sorry. So many of you may or may not know Caring Minds, but just a few things that we have supported over the years. We support service users' events. We've helped to purchase sensory therapy equipment. couple of images here that we've proudly supported and donated funds to. The orchard planting here at Ufcombe, literally growing a place of tranquility and reflection for staff to use and take time to reflect. Also, family days at Tamarind have been thoroughly enjoyed by families, service users and carers, and of course staff. This allows families to come into the services and see what is provided and see how day-to-day things go, which I think is valuable, really. I've visited some of the services myself recently, and it's a real experience. I didn't know that these places were in the area, and I think it's an absolute privilege to be invited to go and spend time there. And I have to say, every time I've visited one of these services, people just are so happy to give their time, give me a tour, and they're so proud of the facilities that we offer. And I think that's definitely something we need to shout about. And as a charity, we will very much welcome opportunities to support these services a lot along the way. We're also honoured to give thanks and help remember. We've helped in many ways. We were able to give our nursing staff thank you gift cards on International Nurses Day. We had a Project Wingman, which was a double-decker bus that took place at Moseley Hall. It's a really cool bus, actually, parked up for a couple of days at the centre, and staff were able to come over and have a cup of tea, a coffee, a biscuit, just a bit of time out away from the pressures that, you know, they all face. And it was amazing to be part of that. And just as simple as it sounds, a cup of tea and a biscuit, it was massively appreciated, and we were proud to be part of that and support that. And also the memorial benches that many of you may have seen across the Trust. We've been able to support those for people to sit on, take time, reflect, and, you know, just take some time for themselves, really. We are fully committed. I know many people have spoken about it and will speak about it today. We value our service members, our staff and our service users, and their well-being is right up there on our priority list. So if they can take time to sit down and enjoy some time out, then amazing. And we'll keep on supporting those things, so keep the bid applications coming in. We're also really inspired. I was massively inspired and encouraged that funding from Caring Minds led to the setup of the Mental Health Natters podcast. I've listened to it. I think it's fantastic. They've got audiences reaching over 350, and they are actually a National Service User Award finalist, which takes place on Wednesday the 14th of September. So I hope you'll all join me in wishing them luck at that event, and well done for getting that far. What an achievement. So Caring Minds progress then. So since April 2021, Caring Minds became part of NHS Charities Together. So NHS Charities Together have done something wonderful. They've brought all the back office charities that have previously been a fund in NHS services to the forefront, and they've enabled the charities to have an independence of their own to sort of start talking about what we do. And I think that's an amazing thing for Caring Minds to have been part of, and you know, it's very innovative that we've jumped on board and got involved. And I went to the national conference, the first NHS Charities Together conference a couple of months back, and it was wonderful to have all the charities in the room, talk about our aspirations, share ideas. And a lot of teams, like myself at the moment, I'm a team of one. I'm hoping to grow that down the line, but it was really nice to be in the room with people who just want to do good. They just want to support the NHS and not just be the cherry on the top, but, you know, really be in partnership with our trusts and help support what we can. So that was amazing. So yeah, we've been a part of those since 2021, and NHS Charities Together motto is stronger together, and I truly believe that we will be going forward. So March 2022, there was an appointment of the Caring Minds Charity Manager, which I'm very proud to say was myself. And I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 6 months. Since I've been here, I've been implementing the charity strategy. My main aim is to raise the profile of Caring Minds, so being here today is certainly going to help with that. So thank you for inviting me. So I want Caring Minds to be known internally and externally. We've got a lot of local communities and businesses that, you know, want to reach out and help mental health charities, mental health trusts. It's at the forefront of everybody's mind right now, so I'm intending to strike while the iron's hot there. So develop relationships with communities, schools and businesses. I've set up online giving platforms now, so we have our own Just Giving page. and I'm building and recruiting for a team of charity companions, so I'll be chatting to you all later, but I'm looking for as many people to get on board with the charity as possible and help me spread the word. As I said previously, I am enjoying getting out to the services. Myself and Tim Hamilton from Comms, we went out yesterday and visited some of the services. We visited Tamarind and we visited Ardenley, and they couldn't have been more welcoming. That, you know, they're taking time out of their day to show us around. They're proud of what they've got. I was amazed by the facilities that we do have, and you know, I think with the charity support and obviously with the trust and the amazing workforce we've got, we can only grow. So that's amazing. So, help us to help you. Who can help? Everybody. We all can. By doing a little bit or by doing a lot. By telling your friends about Caring Minds, by talking to us across the trust. Become a charity companion. As I said, we want friends of the charity. We want people to believe in what we do. I believe in what we do, and I want you all to come along with me and join in and help the charity to help the service. So, fundraise for us, share ideas and success stories. I've got a wonderful one to share with you shortly. Add the Caring Minds logo to the bottom of your communications. Put the link onto our website. Direct people to where we are. Utilise our giving platform. So we've got Just Giving. We've got Amazon Smile. I know a lot of people order things on Amazon, either personally or through the trust. So if that's the case, I'll send you the link, I'll pop it on our website, it's on there anyway, but you know, add it on, and then we get a donation from Amazon Smile. Every little helps, so they say. The staff lottery, that raises around £800 a month for us at the moment, but it's a brilliant initiative. £1, £2, £3 a month, and you could earn yourself £250 bonus. You know, why not? You've got to be in it to win it. So support us, but equally utilise us. Come to us, apply for us, tell us what you need. We want to support you. We understand sometimes the forms are daunting, the process is daunting. Contact me, contact one of the team. We'll help you get through the application process. So why choose to support us? Well, all the money's raised will come directly back to Birmingham and Solihull Mental Health Trust. We value our staff well-being, as I've said, and can't say any clearer. Our staff users deserve the best of us and what we can offer to enhance their experience. We're actively seeking new ways to support as many areas across the trust as possible and encourage those who see opportunities, again, to engage with us. Let us know how we can help and how we can support. So when those we support give back, it gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling, it makes us feel amazing, and it just makes us feel like we're doing the right thing. Another visit I got to go to a school fundraiser, Holt School in Aston. Their children got together and did some wonderful activities, really innovative ideas, baking, gaming, all different things. And they were so proud. And it was, in fact, the speech there was more daunting than the speech I'm doing today, but they were wonderful. They were so welcoming. They were lovely. And I'm really proud to say that because I went and spoke to them and they were so appreciative of being acknowledged, they've chosen us again this year, which is wonderful. We've had in memory giving, people leave legacies, dance competitions, and as I've already referred, the staff lottery raises over £800 a month. And I endeavour to make that higher month on month. So mental health affects us all at some point in some way. We're thankful to those supporting for caring, for choosing to support Caring Minds. So I've got a question for you. Could you cycle 1,000 miles in 8 days? I certainly couldn't. I don't think I could do it over 8 months, let alone 8 days. But we had a wonderful chap called Douglas Connell. He did just that. He was hoping to be here with us today, but sadly work commitments didn't allow. But he did this to give back and acknowledge the life-saving support that he received from one of our services, Birmingham Healthy Minds. And as I said, Douglas was hoping to be here, but he can't. So I'm just going to read a few of his quotes that he sent to us that were massively inspiring to me. So Douglas said to us, during the recent pandemic, my fragile mental health deteriorated due to a number of factors. Having felt lost and at the bitter end of things, my GP insisted that I contact Birmingham Healthy Minds for both advice and treatment. This service was honestly life-saving, and I now have the mechanisms and confidence in place to move forward with insight and control over my mental state. He goes on to talk about the challenge and how it was, he talked about how he needed a big challenge for his ego, and so he chose the Pan-Celtic Ultra Race, which is actually 1,618 miles across the famous Wild Atlantic Way of Ireland. He slept out in the wilderness. He didn't even have a tent, so absolute hats off to Douglas. He said, the ultra race and cycling in general keeps me levelled and is something he calls active meditation and mindfulness. On the saddle is where I can truly find momentarily mental clarity and bliss. And he finishes with saying, he was absolute in his drive to raise money for caring minds, and he really hopes this helps us. He will likely be a long-term, lifelong fundraiser for the charity, and he's offered to become a charity companion and do what he can and spread the word of caring minds. And he quite simply says, thank you to your organisation and the dedicated professionals. I would not be here today without them. So, as I said, I was truly humbled by that, extremely proud to have him on board, and I'm just going to leave you with a couple of pictures. He's so far raised over £1,000 for us. He had an amazing time along the way, and if any of you have been inspired by his story or want to give or set up an activity of your own, or as I said, join in any of the fundraisers that we're doing, you'll be very welcome, and I look forward to working with you, some of you down the line. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Jade, Batchelor. I'm the Widening Participation and Volunteering Advisor for the Widening Participation team within the Learning and Development Department, and I will be talking to you about volunteers within the Trust today. So, what is a volunteer? A volunteer is someone who chooses to commit their time and to support the work of the NHS. Without any financial benefit. What is the purpose of a volunteer? So, BSMHFT values and recognises the role of volunteering as an essential part of the relationship with the community, as well as means of improving service user experience and promoting mental health well-being. Team manager, so recruitment process. So normally the process for recruiting a volunteer for your team would be to contact our team via email. We'll set up a meeting with yourselves, discuss the role profile, agree on that, agree on tasks that can be undertaken by a volunteer, and then I would help you through the recruitment process. So just an example of one of the current roles with our volunteers within the Trust. You can see on the screen now, one of our volunteers works at the Chamomile Suite and undertakes creche activities. So that's supporting the nursery nurse with baby care, changing baby, feeding baby, and setting up creche activities. So volunteer myth-busters. So volunteers must not cover formal healthcare roles. Volunteers must not be used in roles primarily concerned with personal or physical care, for example, bathing or toilet assistance. The roles should be of value to the community/service users, the volunteer and the organisation. The minimum age for volunteers is 18 in clinical areas and 16 in non-clinical areas. There is no upper age limit. The new roles should support the volunteer and reflect the priorities and needs of the organisation. Below I have a statement here from Carol L. Carol Ann Wilson, who is the head of spiritual care. She previously had 20 volunteers that worked within her team. This was prior to COVID. However, during COVID, volunteers were put on hold, and we are due to pick that back up, and I will be helping her in the recruitment process and helping us get our numbers back up with volunteers within the trust. So up-and-coming volunteer opportunities. So we currently have 5 volunteers that work within the trust. They are all based at the Chamomile Suite. We have up-and-coming opportunities. We are going to be working alongside the research team. They're doing a cafe project, and we'll be looking for volunteers to support with this project, as well as working alongside the secure units in their recruitment process to get some volunteers on the units also. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hello. So first of all, I'd like to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to present some of the data, digital and technology work that we do in the Trust at the AGM. And I'd also like to start with a thank you to the team, the ICT team. Bar none, they all go above and beyond. They're probably the most professional and high-performing team I've ever had the privilege to work with, and it really is an honour to come to work each day and work with them. And this presentation is really a homage to them and the work they do. The approach in IT is pretty simple. We put the patient at the heart of what we're trying to do. And if we're trying to make a change and it doesn't benefit the patient in a positive way, we simply don't do it. We find another solution to the problem. We ask ourselves in IT on a daily basis a set of questions. If it was our friends, our family, or our loved one, would we make this change? If we ever answer no, we don't do it. If we answer yes, we proceed. Okay. So you can't talk about digital data and technology in the current climate without mentioning assurance and governance. So currently the Trust is ranked #1 in the region for digital data, technology and cyber security. We're also in the highest quartile, and we have been for the last 6 years in NHSD. We've got a dedicated cyber lead in the organisation, and many organisations are not that privileged. We've also got a dedicated clinical safety officer, an IG, information governance lead, and a records management team behind them. That doesn't mean we rest on our laurels or anything like that. What it does mean, though, it gives us confidence in what we're doing, and we're doing things the right way. And over the next hour, I'm going to take you on a journey through our technology roadmap. And you can rest assured, I just wanted to see the horror on people's faces at the back of the room. I'm going to do this in 10 minutes. Okay, so we're obviously part of a bigger system, both nationally, NHSD, NHS England, and regionally the ICS. And what you can see on the screen right now is the ICS roadmap. And the reason there are a few stars dotted around on the screen is not to bejazzle my presentation and make IT slightly more exciting than it is. It's because they're key projects in the region and key projects for this trust. Now you'll see in the region we've got things like virtual wards, cyber, portals and EPRs, all with a star against them. And they're on the 5-year roadmap for the ICS. But those particular ones that are starred there are this year's roadmap for this trust. Now the benefits there are obviously for our patients, the benefits would be realised much earlier. The benefits for the ICS and partner organisations is they can join us on our procurement and our frameworks and our contracts when they're able. We'll have also done a set of lessons learned from our projects that others can benefit from if they don't want to go directly with us. If I can draw your attention to the Smart Foundations piece on the slide, you'll see in year 2 of the ICS, EPR HIMSS level 5. And the HIMSS level 5 is just the standard that we're benchmarking against for our electronic patient records. In our organisation, we've had RIO for circa 10 years, and we achieved HIMSS level 5 about 3 to 4 years ago. And that's given us an accelerated, especially in that sort of, in that region of Smart Foundations, to do some of the other work earlier and bring it forward within our organisation and benefit not just ourselves but the whole of the ICS. Which leads me into the shared care record. So the shared care record, and what you see on the screen right now is the BSOL shared care record. That's managed, run and implemented by BSMHFT. So we provide the clinical leadership, the enterprise architecture leads, the clinical safety perspective. We also provide the programme management, and we provide the support function as well across the ICS. Now, what you also need to realise is this is replicated in 2 other ICSs. We provide exactly the same service to the whole of Coventry and Warwickshire and the whole of Herefordshire and Worcestershire. So we are batting way above our weight, and we're delivering a fantastic service. So we've got 600 organisations on the shared care record. And as you can see from the BSOL screen, what that means for our patients is we've linked up all the EPRs from mental health, primary care, community, the acutes, West Midlands Ambulance Service. We've got hospices on there. We've got the prison on there because BSMHFT provision healthcare within the prison, and we're able to facilitate that. And down the side, there are a number of other things, such as care homes, etc., and we are bringing them on board. So we're working with dentists, optometrists, pharmacists, and some of the other, bringing them on board to the shared care record. Now, what the benefit is for our patients is effectively, no matter where they turn up, the holistic shared care, health and social care record will be available. It means the patient doesn't have to tell their story twice, 3 times, 4 times, etc. It also means for the clinicians, they're more informed and can make better clinical decisions, hopefully resulting in better outcomes for our patients. Great for the clinician, but this data is patient data. So wouldn't it be great to surface some of this data back to the patient? Allow them to take control and own their own data. So what we're doing in our region is we're working with the NHS app, and what you can see on the screen now is the NHS app. So we're going to provision some of the data from our own EPR, from the shared care record, to the NHS app. And the obvious things to provision are things like your next appointments, your medications, and any results that are pertinent to you, including things like your GP letters. But NHS England has also mandated that every organisation has its own patient portal. And this is something we're working on now, and what you can see on the screen is effectively the beta version of that. Because we wouldn't expect every organisation to provision all their data through one application. So the things that are generic will be provisioned through the NHS app. The things that are sort of specific to the care setting will be provisioned on a local level. And this is an example of something we've worked with, knocked up. The next step is to work with clinicians and, more importantly, service users to render the detail they want. So this could have things like, in fact, we could do virtual consultations through the application with clinicians. We could signpost to other services within our trust, and we could do onward referrals within the organisation. And these are just some of the examples that can be done that we're looking at. Another programme of work, and one that we're leading on in the organisation, is Office 365. So Office 365, most people are aware of Office products and the Excels, the PowerPoints, the Words, etc. But Office 365 is much more powerful than that and gives us much greater access to other applications. Now, the rest of the NHS have got a very restricted view on this. And in fact, if you look at that wheel on the screen now, they've only got about a third of the applications. The team in BSMHFT negotiated directly with Microsoft. We're paying exactly the same costs, but we're getting so much more. So not only are we getting everything on this wheel here, I couldn't put everything on the wheel because you wouldn't be able to read the segments. So this wheel is probably 3 times bigger. And what we've had to do in the organisation is we've reprioritised certain roles and positions, and we've brought in new staff. And we've got 365 specialists now in our organisation. And the sustainability piece I've sort of put on that slide is effectively those standalone items that we've had for a while in the organisation, those standalone programmes that we've needed to support our services, we can slowly remove and replace with the one product, the Office 365 product. So overall, there will be a sustainability piece and a saving to be made at the IT department, but with greater access to digital at the same time. Right, I couldn't not mention this programme of work. So this programme of work started as part of GDE, the Digital Ward Programme, and it's clinically led. It's probably the best and most underrated programme in the Trust because it is clinically led. And all IT do is facilitate a bit of tech on the side. So it started in 2017, and it started on therapeutic obs on the side. And the therapeutic obs was just to look at digitising the way we were doing observations on the wards. Within the first 6 months, we had 1 million data points that we'd collected digitally, and we saved 100,000 pieces of paper. So 5 years later, we've got 10 million plus data points, and we've saved over 1 million pieces of paper. Now, the 1 million pieces of paper is just a byproduct, a by-benefit, but it's fantastic. The real benefit was around compliance and conformance to standards and improvement of quality of care, because we went from 60 to 70% compliance to 98 to 99% within 6 months. And we've maintained that, and in fact, we're regularly at 100%. This application and all the sub-applications that you can see on the screen, and by the way, there are about a dozen more in flow, I just couldn't get them all on one slide. This has got its own mass now, and clinicians are coming to the IT, the techs, to say, look, can we do X, Y, and Z? And we're doing it. And long may it go on, and long may it continue, but it's most definitely clinically led, clinically owned. So it's a fantastic sort of product within the organisation. I'm coming to the close now, you'll all be glad to know. So, last 2 slides. So, we're working nationally with a number of organisations. I mentioned Microsoft, but Google and Fitbit. So, I've sat down and worked with their technical teams to solve a long technical issue, and we've managed to break the back of it. Most people are aware of smartwatches. In fact, 65% of all households in Birmingham apparently have got one. So, it's not disfamiliar sort of technology. And most people are aware that it's great for monitoring steps and your heart rate. But the smartwatches got smarter. So for a while now, the latest smartwatches do sleep. And you can monitor your sleep patterns. And everyone recognises that good quality sleep leads to good quality health outcomes. They've got smarter again. They can now manage stress levels. And this is the bit I was particularly interested in. We can use the Fitbit, and Google are willing to sponsor us to do this as a national project, to look to remote monitor some of our patients, where it's appropriate and applicable. And we're working on the clinical model of what that looks like, by the way. This isn't just a technology-led project. If we can manage stress levels and we can see somebody's stress level increasing, maybe it'd be better if we could have a low-level intervention, low-level resource intervention, much quicker and much earlier before things escalate out of any sort of, and need a greater intervention of resource. And then I thought, wouldn't this be great for staff as well? Because staff get stressed. We're in a stressful environment. If during the working day I could also see my staff were getting stressed, and all it needed was an intervention from me to say, hey, how are you doing? Is there anything I can help with? Wouldn't help with the stress level of the staff. So this is something else we're looking at and we're exploring where we could go with it. The final one is hotel services. It probably doesn't do it justice, the name. It's just the name that I've given it because it's easy to explain to people. So if you're fortunate enough and you've been to a hotel, you go in there, there's a TV. You've got a screen, you can pick whichever channels you want, and you can get things like movies on demand. Okay, our service users are most definitely not as fortunate on our inpatient wards. During the time of COVID, we had restricted activity, restricted movement, and there was nothing we could do about it. And there was an element of not keeping patients entertained, per se, but giving them other things to do. And this project was born, and a group of clinicians approached me and said, look, is there just genuinely more we can do about it? So we've looked into it. It's not cost the trust anything to provision. We've built it into the current model and the current forecasting. We've had to beef up our infrastructure throughout to allow this to happen. But what we've got now, we've just done the proof of concept, and it passed with flying colours. So on all our inpatient wards, and the promise and the commitment from us in IT is to do this by Christmas, as a bit of a Christmas present to the Trust, is to get these facilities on every ward by Christmas. So we've put all the orders in, everything's working, we've got the tech to work. So at Christmas, not only will we have unlimited channels for TV, things like this, we'll also have on-demand facilities, so things like BBC iPlayer and ITV, My5, these sort of on-demand portals for TV programmes, documentaries, etc. And there's 1 million items in their back catalogue that they share with us now. So already that's a massive improvement. We're also going to put in the radio, e-books, newspapers, magazines and podcasts. And it also opens up the floodgates for other things. And I've put subscription video on demand. Now, I don't know how the CFO is going to pay for that, but I think there's things we can do, and we've built the tech to do it. So that's where we're at, and that's the end of the presentation on the tech. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I remembered this time. So just a brief introduction. Danielle's already talked about how important the governors are in this organisation, the work that they do. We've got a brief presentation from one of the stakeholder governors, Stephanie Bloxham. So I'm just going to turn over. Is someone going to put that on? Okay, cheers. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Bloxham and I'm a Stakeholder Governor. I'm also Health and Social Care Business Units Manager at Birmingham Voluntary Service Council. As a Stakeholder Governor, I've been appointed on behalf of Birmingham Voluntary Service Council, also known as BVSC. BVSC is the local infrastructure organisation for the whole voluntary community faith and social enterprise sector in Birmingham, and we represent the sector within the Council of Governors for the Trust. As part of my role within BVSC as Health and Social Care Manager, our team works across a number of projects in partnership with the health and care system for Birmingham and Solihull. We're also leading on a programme of embedding the voluntary and community sector into Birmingham and Solihull's integrated care system. We support a robust voluntary and community sector that's informed by the lived experience of our local people, and we have a wide range of projects and programmes working with the sector and that reaches into our diverse communities. We aim to support a vibrant and resilient voluntary and community sector, which in turn ensures that people from across our city feel included and engaged and have access to this appropriate support from people who understand the issues and the challenges that they face. As part of the Stakeholder Governor role, we undertake the main duties of the Governor role, for example, holding non-executive directors to account for the performance of the Board of Directors. As a Stakeholder Governor, we also represent the interests of the voluntary community faith and social enterprise sector, and we bring insights and learning from our work working with the sector to the strategic plans and the activities of the Trust. We attend the bi-monthly Council of Governors meetings where key reports are shared from Executive Directors and Non-Executive Directors. For example, reports from the Chair of the Quality, Patient, Experience and Safety Committee and the Chair of the People Committee. We're able to feed into updates, plans and developments where possible. We can advocate for the voluntary, community, faith and social enterprise sector and our communities where necessary, and we're there to be a critical friend and to constructively challenge. I, BVSC, very much look forward to continuing our role as a Stakeholder Governor with the Trust and helping the Trust to achieve the aims set out in its 5-year strategy. Thank you.
So we've had a fascinating array of speakers. Thank you for everybody that's contributed. We've now got the opportunity for questions and answers. And I think, Tim, you've been collecting questions for the panel.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. So we've got some interesting questions coming already. First of which is an anonymous question. And it is, we've made good progress on reducing restrictive practices. What's the next priority?
This is a really good question. For Biba, are you happy to answer that question about progress on restrictive practice and next steps?
Thank you. Hello everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Fabida Arya. I'm the new medical director. I'm just about a month in. I'm really pleased to hear how well the reducing restrictive practice work has gone, and using the QI methodology, that has been real success. I'm really keen to roll out more projects. One of the biggest priorities for me is about the pressures on beds that some of you all know about. And we have been having many conversations about that with many of our internal and external colleagues. So definitely we are planning to use a QI approach and look at how we can ensure that patients who need beds get them in time. So that's definitely a priority. There are many other priorities that go alongside, but right now that's the main priority, so I won't take too much time on that. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that, Fabiba. So good to hear that we're planning to continue building on the excellent progress so far. Could we have the next question?
Yeah, the next question again is anonymous, and it's on finances. We've heard in some detail quite a positive story from the finance director, but what will be the impact of increased energy costs on the Trust's finances?
Excellent question. Dave?
Fact is, we don't really know. We've estimated it's about 6 million quid in the next year, but it's really difficult to forecast right now, so that's based on our current understanding. So if you look at the overall figures I did earlier on, it's major. And I know it's going to be the same for individuals as well, but for a trust like this, it's major. It really changes what we have to do. We're considering what we do about that, but it's of the order of 6 million quid.
Thank you. Tim, next question.
Yeah, and I think it sort of follows on naturally from that question, and Dave alluded to it. What is the Trust doing to help people in this cost of living crisis?
Thanks for that question. I'm going to call on Patrick, who's got the director with the portfolio for people, and he'll talk about what we're planning to do and what's already underway to support colleagues to deal with the cost of living crisis.
Thank you, Chair. For those who don't know me, I'm Patrick Nyarumbu, Executive Director of Strategy People and Partnerships. So, like many people, staff within our organisation will be impacted by the cost of living. I think that is something that we all experience, and it's important that as an organisation we respond to that. We talked about our values, one being of being compassionate. And I think the first thing for me is how we are compassionate with each other when it comes to understanding how our colleagues are experiencing the increase in cost of living. As an organisation, we have seen an increase in fuel costs, and we have taken measures to support colleagues who are travelling day in, day out to visit service users in the community. And we have done that to ensure that we can compensate in some way in terms of the increase in fuel costs. We know that is not enough, but we are committed to continue to do a lot more. We're also looking at how we can continue to introduce agile ways of working. We know commuting is part of the costs for our staff. And I really encourage colleagues to talk to their line managers to ensure that we can truly embed flexible working and agile working within our organisation, because that does help in reducing the costs that we know are quite significant if you have to commute to work. We're also really looking at other programs of work within our system in terms of how can we ensure that we make some of the offers available to NHS colleagues, for example, accessing discounted childcare for staff. We know that there's specific supermarkets that offer discounts to the NHS. How do we make that a lot more visible to our workforce to ensure that we can maximise on that? There was a question early on as well around how can we maximise on our charity. We are looking at opportunities to provide some of those hardship grants, and we will be talking about some of that quite soon. I think there is a lot that we can do. I don't think we can just rest on our laurels and think that we've done everything. I also encourage people, if they have any ideas about what we can do locally or as an organisation from a corporate perspective, that they do get in touch either with our comms colleagues or even personally with myself, because this is something that I'm really keen that I can support people in the organisation.
Thank you, Patrick. Tim, have we got any more questions?
Yeah, we do. It's just a shame Patrick has walked back to his seat, because this the next question is probably right up his street too. It's on our values and the fact that Roísìn acknowledged that we do have some significant work further to embed our values, especially around bullying. What are the next steps?
Yeah, this is a subject that the board is taking very seriously. As I said right at the start, there's a lot of work being done, but we know that not everybody is feeling the benefit of that. There's still further that we can go to address the long-standing cultural challenges in the organisation. Patrick, do you want to come and say a little bit more?
Thank you, Chair. So, absolutely agree with the question in terms of what do we need to be doing more of. This year, you would have seen that we've made very clear our stance as an organisation. The data is telling us that this has been a long-standing issue within our organisation. I truly appreciate that it takes a while to change cultures, but this does cause a lot of distress to our staff when you're going through bullying and harassment and discrimination. So I think it's really important that we really start to focus on the actions, focusing on accountability. I think we've made it very, very clear in the organisation in terms of what our position is. This is now the time that we focus on accountability. There is work that we're progressing around policies to support that in holding colleagues to account. We have development opportunities for colleagues. Our learning and development team have modules to support with embedding our values, with managers in understanding how they can support their staff. And we're also embedding that in our appraisal process, but it's still not enough. When people respond to our survey in terms of how they experience the organisation, when they talk about incivility, they're talking about their day-to-day experiences with their colleagues. And I think it's important that we start to really focus on that. How can we work together as a team and look after each other and be respectful and kind? Because that's what we hear people telling us, that we're not just being kind to each other and not being respectful. So there's a lot more that we need to do, but I think for me it's really about focusing on actions and accountability.
Thank you, Patrick. Tim, have you got any more questions?
And again, another anonymous question. Yeah, it is for Patrick. No, I'm joking. Will anything be done to address the waiting time to access adult ADHD services? I have ADHD myself, and through support groups I know it is a nationwide problem with waiting times to get to an ADHD assessment as an adult. It varies from location to location, but I believe Birmingham is up to 4 years. I have gone private because of this.
Yeah, that's a very difficult and very specific question, isn't it? And obviously the challenges of the backlog across a range of our services are significant, and they are issues that we consider in the committees and at board. I'm not sure whether there's anyone that can answer that specific question right now. I'm looking around to see if there's anybody that wants to. Viviva, do you want to talk about the work that's happening?
I can just briefly mention some of the things, because I have met the lead consultants for ADHD, Dr. Sharma, and the clinical director. So last year, the waiting list has been a problem for years. It, of course, got enhanced with COVID, but last year they went to a lead consultant model, which I know works well in other trusts. And I know this year we've increased the number of sessions for consultants to do ADHD clinics, so hopefully we should see the impact of those on our waiting list. I do not have the data or details like Danielle said, so I'm happy to take that outside. Thank you.
Tim.
And I think this relates to some of the slides that Danielle yourself talked through earlier in the presentation around the wider system work on reducing health inequalities. How will we know we are actually making progress around reducing health inequalities?
Oh, thank you. I'm going to call for Biba back up for that question. This is a question about how, as a trust, we'll know that we're having an impact on tackling health inequalities, which is obviously one of the Trust's important priorities. So this isn't something that's set in stone, this is something that's in development, that will be in development with everybody in their individual teams in the Trust as well. But for Biba, do you want to talk a little bit more?
So, about health inequalities, I believe this is everybody's business. This is not just for one or two people, you know, sitting on the board or in the front line. This is everybody's job, no matter what job we do, or where we work, or what part of the community we belong to. There's a whole range of formal mechanisms in terms of data and submissions. We're also very lucky to be part of a national pilot called the Patient and Carer Equality Forum, so that's really good that we're part of that. Danielle and other people on the board are very much involved in the ICS conversation of addressing health inequalities, and like everyone said before, partnerships is key. If we do things together, we address inequalities together. We have to understand the barriers, like a lot of people that I have treated don't have access to digital things. How do we reach out to them? How do we reach to those places and communities? Our community transformation has that as one of their main priorities about addressing health inequalities. So I think it is a part of everything we do. And in my few weeks here, I'm really pleased to see the journey the Trust has been on, and there's still a way to go, but I've heard lots of positive things, and we need everybody's help to get there. So I would urge everyone to get involved, to speak up, to give us ideas, and let's all work together. With the new energy crisis and other things coming, it's going to be a difficult winter, and we all have to work together and support and help each other. So it's embedded in our values, and we have to be the people to show our values. So I think I'm really passionate about this, like a lot of you, and it's a conversation we need to keep having. Thank you.
Thank you for Biba. Tim.
And a question from one of our governors, Mushtaq Mirza. What is the #1 priority for the Trust to improve its services for patients and treatment of staff?
Well, I know my priority, so I'll say mine, but obviously I'll give Roísìn an opportunity as well. I think that's only fair. For me, the #1 priority for improving services and our general offer to communities, to our patients, to carers, etc., the #1 priority is to support our colleagues. Workforce is the #1 priority as far as I'm concerned. If we haven't got people here to do the work, and if when they're here to do the work, they're not properly supported, they don't feel that they can give of their best, that they feel that they're being bullied or discriminated against, or haven't got sufficient amount of colleagues to support them in their roles, then we are going to struggle as a service, and that is where we are. That is where the NHS is at the moment, and a lot of the work that we've been talking about today is about addressing that #1 priority. So that's very much where I stand. You might want to have a more nuanced approach to the question from Roísìn as well.
I think, Danielle, you've articulated really well what's all on our minds. And I'm sure Mushtaq behind your question was the fact that actually it's about the experience you have when you're in our services. And that's about the people that provide your care. And if we aren't making that our #1 priority to make their experience well and good in order for you to have a good experience, then we'll be continuing to fail. So I absolutely agree that is our. I think that's how we'll get improvements in our quality, because people will be able to give it attention, and it's also how we'll get general improvements in taking accountability, because people will feel taking pride in what they do is important to them. So I would agree with that as our priority, and I know that board members in the room know that this is the conversation we are constantly having around how do we both make sure we've got the right number of people with the right levels of experience, but also that they are having the right experiences.
Thank you. Tim?
And again, an anonymous question. What is the Trust doing to support black, minority, ethnic colleagues and colleagues with disabilities to progress their careers, as there's no consistency across the Trust? And there's a follow-up question that might be dealt with. What does becoming an anti-racist organisation mean to colleagues on the ground, and how can we support this? The badge campaign is great. What else is planned?
Yeah, that's a very important question. And I will call on Patrick to come and answer that question more deeply. But just to say that as a board, we take this very seriously. We talk about it in our committees and also at board. Certainly when I arrived at the Trust, one of the things that I was very clear on, this is a very diverse area of the country, and we need to see that reflected throughout the organisation. And we can see from the information that we get, such as staff surveys, that there is a differential in the experience. So we know that it's a serious issue. There's a programme of work addressing that, but Patrick can give a little bit more detail about what that work entails and the progress that we're making.
Thank you, Chair. A very important question. I think, for me, we have made some very clear commitments as a board through the work that we do within the People Committee that is led by one of our non-executives, Phil Gale. And we've been very clear there that the population that we serve in Birmingham and Solihull, 41% of those colleagues of our community are from an ethnic minority background. And it's important that our workforce and specifically our senior leadership reflects that. So career progression is really, really important. So we have made a commitment that we need to align with that. And that has been supported by the board. So what we're doing next, we have specific work programs that we're putting in place that we will be sharing with you in the next coming weeks. That really focuses on career progression for colleagues from an ethnic minority background and also for those who've declared a disability. Because that's what the data is telling us, that those demographics are finding challenging to progress in terms of careers. We want everyone to flourish in this organisation, and it's important that we pay attention to that. So we will be reaching out to colleagues in terms of what that means, what that looks like. And I'm really glad that we've been working with our staff networks. We've been working as well with our union colleagues to really start to progress some of this work. And I really appreciate the dedication that I've seen from all of them. So in the next coming weeks, we will be sharing a bit more information around what that means in terms of flourishing within the organisation. I think there was another question around what does that mean to be an anti-racist organisation. I think for me, I always really think it's what it means to me personally. And I think sometimes I think, so what do I want to experience when I come to work? So I want to come to work and experience that people don't see my colour before they see my competencies. And I think that's important. I want to come to work and I don't want to feel discriminated. I want to be respected for what I offer rather than because of the colour of my skin. And that's what I want everyone to experience. So if we can genuinely empower people to bring their whole self to work and not feel discriminated, we'd have achieved something as an organisation.
Thank you very much for that, Patrick. A very powerful end to a really, really good session, actually. I think for an AGM, which obviously we have to deal with a lot of the technical parts of the reporting of the end of the year, etc. You know, it can feel less than inspiring, let's be honest. But we've heard some fantastic speakers talking about pieces of work that most of us maybe had some awareness of, but we certainly now know quite a lot more. I mean, who knew how exciting the digital agenda was? I could have listened for an hour. But joking aside, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody that's contributed, everybody that's listening in and tuning in, and also thank you so much to Tim and the communications team who've run this like a very slick operation, to our colleagues who are doing the sign language interpretation. Really appreciate it. And thank you to all of the colleagues for all of the wonderful work that you do, despite being increasingly under very challenging conditions. It's gratefully appreciated and it's not taken for granted. I'll now hand over to Roísìn, who's going to say a few closing words.
I just want to end by saying that I'm sorry that we don't always get it right. We've spoken today openly and honestly about some of the challenges that we have, and that we know that we don't always get it right, and I apologise on behalf of all of the board for that. What I hope you've heard is a commitment on our part to continue to improve that situation, and a dedication and a determination to do that. And what I hope you've also heard is that some fantastic things are happening in the organisation. So we know when we work together, we can achieve great things. So our next year, we hope, is about doing more to achieve great things. Thank you.